you're supposed to be making phone calls. And so you're gonna wanna have your approach, your objection sheet, and your numbers all ready to call, all organized, all set out, and then just start making calls. And so you wanna write how many demos you want, and then think about how many calls you're gonna wanna make for that. So say about like 4 calls maybe needed to get 1 demo. So if you wanted to get 3 demos, you wanna make at least 12 calls, right? Alright, and here's another big one. Following your phone approach is an absolute must if you're gonna set up demos. If you're ad-libbing it or if you're making up your own phone approach, you're not setting up demos. Maybe with like somebody that really, really likes you, but if you ever get to call people you don't know, you wanna start making good habits now with calling people you do know with the manual. And those people will set up with you if you're following the manual, word for word. Also, handling objections. Does anyone here have an objection sheet? Mark?
Everybody does.
Here,
Okay.
but yeah.
Alright, ask me afterward and I'd be happy to give any of you objection sheet. It needs to be right next to you when you're making calls. So, for example, they might say, I'm busy, or just say anything, and it will have something for you to say to them, instead of you making up a response. And, alright, who here has ever scheduled an appointment and had that person not show up to, or be there at the appointment?
And did what?
And had that person not be at their house when they said they were gonna be. Ever happened? Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna teach you how to not make that happen.
Nice.
So, first step, always, always, always get directions. You might even know where they live, they might be around the block from you. And just be like, hey, I get lost in my own room, if you could just give me directions so that way I can find it. And just make sure you get directions. It's not because you don't know how to get to their house. And it's not because you don't have a GPS on your phone, which a lot of you probably do. It's so that customer is having a mental image of you driving to their house, and it firms it up in their mind that you're gonna be there. So if they picture you driving to their house, they're gonna remember the appointment. And also, you wanna be at the very end, and this is in the approach, by the way, guys. So if you're following the approach, you're already doing this. But make sure they are writing it down in their calendar or a planner, which HM3s have these, by the way. So make sure they're writing it down. Another tip, you might have heard Mark or someone else doing this, but have them be like, hey, could you tape a shiny penny to your fridge? I'll explain when I get there. And then they're gonna see the shiny penny on the fridge, and you'll already have a penny to cut when you get there. Also, another thing I like to do, and a lot of people like to do in our office, is tell them, and could you draw a smiley face by my name so you'll recognize me when I come to the door? We even had a rep in our office, hey, could you draw me a really cool smiley face? I have to turn it into the office. You notice in the bulletin board there's a couple like smiley faces. And that person doesn't get ditched on their appointments. Because the customer's like, oh, I've got to draw the smiley face. They have their kids draw on the smiley face. So it's something like really fun you could do. And then at the end of the approach, after you got the demo and everything, thank them, overthank them, explain how important the demo is to them and how much it means to you. Because, you know, to them it's just an hour of their day, but for you it's a demo. So really, really express gratitude and let them know how thankful you are for the demo. And lastly,
How would that sound?
Huh?
How would that sound?
Alright. Thank you so much, Mrs. Jones. I really appreciate you. This means more than you know. And just really express how you feel about getting the demo. Just be sincere about it.
Does that sound familiar to anyone? How does it sound familiar to you, Derek?
Well, probably because that's something I've already incorporated.
It kind of happens in your phone approach?
Recommendation.
Like, thank you very much for helping me reach my goal. I really
Goal.
appreciate it. And
Okay.
exactly with the recommendations.
Yeah, and that's
exactly
actually in your original phone approach, isn't it? Page 24 in your manual. It's in your original phone approach, but it's not necessarily maybe being added into your actual, when you're calling your yeses or your recommendations or anything like that. You might be forgetting to thank them, and in which case they ditch you on the appointment. Have you been frustrated by that before? Right? So if you overthink them, you're gonna find better results come.
So if it means a lot to you, then it's gonna mean to your customer. Your customer is not ever gonna care more about your demo than you do, or more than they think you do. So overthinking them is a good idea. And so the next time you get on the phone, I want you to look at these notes. Have the notes out from your team meeting, by the way, like with your Cutco stuff. And that way you're actually implementing this stuff when you get on the phone. Alright, thank you. Oh, questions?
What if they're on their cell phone and they're like, my schedule's on my phone, so I can't?
Not true.
Say your schedule's on your phone. I would call back. This is something I've done. Not sure to be like, oh, okay, is there something you could write it down on? And if they're like driving or something, or I would call back and leave a voicemail. That's what I do with a lot of applicants.
And leave a voicemail with the directions.
Yeah,
But
leave a
she has to
voicemail.
call you back and do that.
Yeah, leave a voicemail and be like, okay, this is your reminder for our demo, and like,
Okay, for a reminder.
yeah.
Another thing I'll say is they actually have the ability to get on their phone, on their calendar, and just like you guys know you can, you just put the phone on speaker and you start working on your calendar while you're on your phone. So say, you know what, that would really help. It would be really helpful. Can you put me on speaker? Like suggest it.
Oh.
Hey, could you put me on speaker real quick and just put it in your phone, because this is really super duper important to me. And as long as I hit my goal on my appointments, I'm gonna hit my goal for the week. I'm really trying to get a pay raise. Just like all of you have the opportunity, two orders right now basically, and you're just 2 orders away from a pay raise. The majority of people in this room are 2 orders away from a pay raise. So you can always say that I'm just a little ways away from my pay raise or my next promotion. So if you could maybe put this in your computer, in your phone real quick. Also, if they're on a certain type of phone, like I know you can do an iCal event if you're like on an iPhone. You can set an event in your phone
You can do it on
and
Android
invite
as
your
well.
customer to the event through iCal. So that's something else you might consider if they're on an iPhone and you're on an iPhone. So if you don't have an iPhone, you don't have an iPhone. Okay, so but that's just American society talking right there. Okay, so any other questions for Marina? If you're gonna give her a round of applause, okay?